You know what I mean?
Good stuff, yeah.
I think we're ready to begin.
Alrighty.
Right.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I hope you're doing well. Hello, and welcome to the Museum of Latin American Art. Latin American Art, oh my God, sorry. Latinx Heritage Month. My name is Gabriela Legaspi. I'm the education specialist here at MOLA. And on behalf of the rest of the team at MOLA, I would like to thank you for joining us today as we learn more about the Latino Comics Expo. Before we begin, I would like to thank the sponsor that made this event possible and accessible. Please enjoy this trailer for the series Star Wars Vision, streaming now on Disney+.
Long ago, a great warrior entrusted our ancestors with this. Its responsibility now lies with you. You've been guided by the Force since you were born.
It's the first time I've confronted such darkness. Something ancient and sinister.
Let's make this our best show ever!
I accept this responsibility.
MOLA receives additional support from the Robert Gimler Foundation, the City of Long Beach, the Arts Council of Long Beach. The education programming at MOLA is supported by the Norris Foundation, the Miller Foundation, the Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, and other generous individuals. Your host for today is Ricardo Padilla, Executive Director and co-founder of the Latino Comics Expo, the nation's premier gathering of Latino comic book creator and animator since 2011. Ricardo is also the creator of Design Esperanza, a journal of the Latino arts and culture. He is also collaborating on his debut comic, Border Avenger, with an artist, Marcus Collar, debuting in 2001. And we are excited to be joined today by Gilbert Hernandez. Gilbert has been awarded many awards, including the EISNER, many Harvey Awards, and the Penn Center Prize for Outstanding Body of Work.
Yes, welcome, Gilbert. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you once again.
Good to see you, Ricardo.
Yes, this is not our first rodeo, but just on behalf of the Latino Comics Expo, we just want to thank you again for supporting us and always being there for us. Believe it or not, this is our 10th anniversary. Can you believe we've been doing this for 10 years?
Awesome. That's great.
And the cool thing is that you've kind of been there for like about half of them. So
Well,
you've kind of been there since the beginning. Maybe briefly before you start, maybe you can give your impressions of the Expo. I know every year we try to get a little bit bigger and better. Maybe you can share some of your early impressions of our Expo.
oh, I've always liked it. I just felt home. I felt like, all right, let's a bunch of people that speak my language, and it's great. I liked it. I didn't have to explain what a tostada is, It's like, no, seriously, it was good. It was just good. It felt real homey, hanging out and that kind of thing. Loved it.
Because we have to admit that one of our core principles, one of our mission statements is that we will not rest until, all the Latinx people are aware of Love and Rockets and all your guys' work. That's the one thing that always makes me mad is I always want more Latinos to know about Love and Rockets. Have you ever noticed that there's kind of a lack of Latino fan base, or is it kind of, you think it's even 50-50?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I remember in the early days, maybe the 80s and 90s, there was a lot more vocal people talking about it. Now we don't get a lot of response. I mean, there's probably people out there, but we don't know. And, I just keep chugging along.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing because you've been chugging along for 40 years. I mean, that's the thing that makes you so amazing. I mean, like to us, and especially to me, like you're the man. You, maybe your brother Jaime. I mean, over the last 50 years, your body of work, the length of your narrative, 40 years. I mean, who else has done that? You know, Mark Twain, you know, Charles Schultz, who else? You know, it's an incredible body of work. And like I said, one of our goals is to have people recognize that and just, you know, admire that amazing career. How do you guys keep going?
Because then I wouldn't have anything else to do. And I really know it's really something that I look forward to every day, you know, and to do a little bit of work, not a lot, but, you know, something, because that's just how I work. That's how it just works for us. And I'm just going to Jaime and I are going to just keep doing it till our bodies collapse or, you know, we're thrown in jail.
Cool. I approve of that. Just, you know, our interviews are always a little bit different because I never get too complex about, you know, your grid system or your bordering or anything like that. I'm kind of pretty much a fanboy of your work. And, you know, I have to admit, I haven't been 40 years, but ya mero, you know, about, you know, 20, 30 years of looking at your work. And I have to admit that the reason I did, you know, gravitate to it was because of Latino themes, especially in Palomar. You know, a lot of the situations, a lot of the people, especially a lot of the women were people that I could, you know, recognize from my own families. You know, a lot of people say surrealism, magic realism, but a lot of the scenes that you depict, a lot of the stories seem like everyday, you know, life in the barrio. You know, and that's one thing I really admire about your work. If maybe you can just talk about your, you know, your Latino influences and Palomar and all your work.
Well, you know, early on, I just felt like I wanted to be different or original or something. I mean, nobody can be, you know, totally original, but I wanted to just say something that nobody knows about. You know, like I can copy Spider-Man, I could copy all that stuff, but I wouldn't be happy. I'd be worn out right away. But to create the characters in Palomar and you know, some of the other characters, I just decided, you know, I was going to bring what I grew up with. How, you know, we all have uncles and cousins who are just funny. You know, they're funny people or just cool people and this. You never saw them in movies or TV or anything like that. And if they were like musicians and stuff, they're compromised in that world. You know, they have to follow certain, you know, guidelines. You know, can't be too Latino. You can't be that. Whatever it is that they're up against. But since Jaime and I were doing what was essentially early on an underground comic, we could do whatever we wanted. And since Jaime's stuff was so popular right away, I could just do the Palomar stories. I just thought, I'm just going to do the story. And this guy's going to be like my uncle. This guy's going to be like, and then you know, like my cousins or whatever, or guys I knew in the neighborhood, and some of the women would be like that too. And then I'm a fondness for old movies. So, and all, you know, all the actors are attractive, so you throw in a lot of attractive people in there too, just because that's how, you know, pop entertainment, it works. You know, you have attractive people, you know, doing. So I mixed that all up, but it was the most important was the characters that we like you said, we grew up with, who were part of us, and what, you know, that I just thought those are great stories. I have great stories talking about my cousins, my uncles, my friends at school that weren't told anywhere else, at least that I knew of, other than a novel that nobody's going to read, you know. But anyway,
it's true. No, I remember today the Latinidad part of it, and especially the female characters. I mean, you know, many people have written a lot of stuff about your depiction of women. I mean, to me, it's just been incredible. I mean, to me, you know, there's a very realistic core. There's a very beautiful core, you know, and especially the stories. But maybe tell us just a little bit about, you know, the women in your work. I mean, they're amazing, but I think sometimes people just look at the surface and maybe they don't get into the depth of it. I mean, like for example, I'm a Fritz fan. You draw her beautifully. She's always in amazing scenarios, but to me, I'm always moved by her because it seems like there's something deep, there's something inside of her, melancholy. She has that 1,000-yard stare. I don't know. Maybe tell us about the kind of women that you depict in your stories. They're amazing.
Actually, some of the adult women characters, like say like Luba and Fritz, they're mysteries to me. That's why they were fun to write, because I don't know who they are. I didn't know who Luba was, so yeah, she looked like a comic book character or an old 50s, you know, a bombshell type, you know, actress. But when I would write her, you know, she would write herself. She was all mad and yelling at me all the time. So I'm like, you know, I have to put it down, you know. So it just kind of worked for me. So Luba is probably my best written character. I think of all, because I was younger, it was new, you know, And I just liked telling her story, that she was just kind of tired. She's kind of tired and cranky, and she was, I don't know, she was full of contradictions. And then once I started doing Fritz, because I was kind of burning out on the Luba stuff, I didn't want to repeat stuff. I started working on Fritz, and she's more mysterious to me than that. She's, like you said, she's got that 1,000-mile stare. She's just kind of just, does she know what she's doing, or does she not? And the reason, and I made her, a millionaire from investments and also acting and stuff. That way I could put her in any scenario I wanted to. She jumps on a plane and goes wherever she wants to go. She makes a movie about whatever she wants, and she's a total fantasy in that sense. But like you said, the inner workings were important. What's inside these nutty characters? They're kind of kooky, but so is everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it reminds me of like my own family or my own neighborhood. Is like there's always that that beautiful woman in the neighborhood, but nobody knows where she's from. Nobody knows what she's doing here. Nobody knows her first family. But she holds people enthralled. So that's what I love about your work. It's like there's like a dark, not maybe like a dark, but a mysterious undertone to these characters that I love so much. And another thing that I love that you've mentioned that influence before that I love talking to you about is, of course, your admiration of Buñuel, Los Olvidados, and stuff like that. I know you also mentioned Black Orpheus and some other Pichotes, but maybe just speak a little bit about Buñuel, because he's one of my favorites too, and I do get a strong Buñuelian feel when I do get deep into Gilbert Hernandez. Maybe just talk about that.
I'd seen a couple of Buñuel movies, that Obscure Object of Desire, and then another one. I thought they were good, but they were a little distant to me. I was a little lost at what he was trying to say, although I enjoyed the films, of course. It wasn't until I saw Los Olvidados, and I was like, that's a comic book for me. And they go, but what would it be like if I did this sort of story, but without the crime element? Because the crime element's part of the story. And of course that's happening in places like that and for real, but I thought, why don't we just back off on that for a little bit? I mean, you watch Leave It to Beaver, there's no crimes and no bank robbers, pretty good example. But a lot of things you don't see, drugs and Seinfeld people, you don't see that, and it's always expected in Latinos or Blacks, in their stories. So I just thought, well, how about doing that, the fun stuff, the cool life that the kids are having in that movie, without the crime, at least in one story, at least, or a couple. And that's how I felt about it, and that's the same thing with The Godfather. When I saw The Godfather, we talked about this once, and I remember thinking, like, this would be great what if this movie, this story, wasn't about gangsters? It was just about poor businessmen or whatever. I don't know what we could replace it with, but it was about, because people are, people who love The Godfather, they're happy about the family connection, the way everybody acts, the way some people are cool and some people are losers, and it's just so entertaining movie, such an entertaining movie, and more so Los Olvidados for me. So anyway, I just love those films, and what I would do is let's just pull out the cool stuff and just leave the crime alone. Well, that was for a while. Now I'm just crime all the time. All my stories are crime stories, so never mind.
Because I do notice that a lot of people lately, at least, are trying to position you as, in the surrealist camp, magic realism, surrealism. And I just wonder, is that something you consciously do? Is it one of the things you pulled out of Buñuel, or is it one of those other Latino things that you just never know what might happen on a day-to-day basis?
It's all of that, because one of the main things is growing up, and you probably experienced this, a lot of our listeners right now, is that, you're a little kid and somebody's talking about the crazy lady down the street, or the ghost that lives, in the tree, or just little things like that. And when you're at a certain age, you buy it, you're not going to go, no, there's no ghost up there. You go, no, I'm just not going to walk by that tree, for at least a part of your life. And I don't know, that always fascinated me as a kid, that the other world living, coexisting with us, nothing actually violent or anything, but just eerie or weird, or we have no reason. Why does a ghost become a ghost? How come they still hang around? Now they have all this scientific reasoning, but I don't know. I just thought like that, and and then I would see it in movies like dream sequences. That really inspired me. Like, there's a great one in Los Olvidados. There's a great one in Rosemary's Baby. There are great ones in certain films that you just like, that's a dream. It feels like I'm in a dream, you know. So anyway, I just kind of emphasize that because, like I said, when we started Love Rockets, is sort of an underground comic. We just did what we liked. We put in what we liked. I mean, the one that baffled people for years is that why were we so strongly influenced by Archie comics and the drawings in Archie comics? People were confused for a long time because they're used to Spider-Man. They were used to a different, because remember, this is the early 80s. People were used to a different kind of comic growing up. And we grew up in the 60s where there was more variety than there was in the 70s. So anyway.
No, that's been one of the fascinating things hanging out with you and Jaime is just your admiration for DiCarlo and just your explanation of a clean line and you know what can be done with simple phrasing. You don't really realize it until somebody explains it to you, but you realize that, like you said, like people like DiCarlo, Ketchum, masters,
Sure,
master craftsmen.
and they were fine artists of people. That's what got me. You read a good Dennis Menace comic or Archie comic or something from the old days, or even Hot Stuff or Little Richie Rich. If it had a good artist on it, they told a story, and you can really get into the body language, the hand movements, all the stuff that was going on. Even though the stories are light, they're for kids, but you get over to Marvel and DC, and everybody's serious, like padded captions. Boy, Stan Lee, boy, he put some padding in those captions because, and then, I've talked about this before, and then the characters talk like this. Whereas in the kid comics, they're going like this, or oof, or or running like yeah. So we like that part of those comics, and we thought, why can't we put those from little kid comics into adult stories? Just have the expressions and the because Andy Carlo and there's a guy named Harry Lucy who drew Archie comics. Those guys just drew well. They just drew human beings. They would look like Archie and all that, but the way they stood and the way they reacted to those artists really know how to take the scripts and bring them to life. Like I said, there's minor comics and they have their modest appeal, but they really influenced us as far as being elastic with the characters and what they look like and how they moved. Yeah.
Like you said, drawing the human form. It's I don't know if it's an underrated thing, but it's a beautiful thing. And before we had Fritz, I guess we had Betty and Veronica to lust after.
That's funny because when I was a little kid, I never felt that about Betty and Veronica because they were equal. They just had interchangeable hairdo, but the characters were defined. You knew who Veronica was and you knew who Betty was, but I never got that like, oh, I'm reading this because they're hot. Although I think now how pervy they were. It's about 16-year-old girls, and every summer they would be in bikinis and doing all this girly stuff, and the guys are like, it's like, wait a minute, this is for kids. I saw that later. I just thought they were funny stories. I just thought they're entertaining. But now I think about it now, I was like, wow, those are kind of emphasizing that in those comics. But kids like them, and mostly girls read them. So yeah.
That's true. Did you ever see any of his Venus work? That DiCarlo did the Venus, the old Venus cartoon. Did you ever see that one?
Are you thinking of DiCarlo? Was it like a space age thing you're thinking of, or?
I thought she was like a Greek goddess, Venus, and she would come down.
Oh, I don't know if DiCarlo did that. I don't know. Did he? I don't know. Oh yeah, it was an old Marvel comic called Venus.
Usually you're my pop culture.
I'm trying to remember the art. I don't know if it was DiCarlo though. I know it was one of those romance artists who did it.
That's true. And speaking about new stuff that's coming out, I have to admit that I really admire some of your newer work, Scarlet by Starlight and Hypnotist. Maybe you can talk about a little bit about that. That really kind of blew me away. Like I said, I'm a Fritz fan, but just the whole hypnotist angle, like you said, that's, that other side of magic and transcendence. Talk about what kind of influenced you to go in that direction.
For Hypnotwist, I just decided, okay, I wanted to do a long story that just didn't rely on dialogue. My stories mostly rely on dialogue, and I thought, so silent. I just, I'm a silent movie fan of the great films, and I thought, well, they're telling the story without too many words. And they have the place cards, but they still doing it. But and of course, Chaplin, Keaton, those guys, they're geniuses because they didn't even want to bother with the story. They just want to do stuff and get to the plot that way. So I'd want to do that. I go, well, I don't have the crutch of the words, because the words can bail you out pretty quick. Let's say the character's doing this and this, and I go, you know what, I really have to go into detail of what they're doing next. If you have a script, you can explain something and get around it without having to spend 3 pages having the character do it. Although sometimes that can be fun. You know, like I said, Hypnotist is fun because I had the character doing all this stuff. But I only wanted to do it once in a while because I like dialogue and I like it. So I did that story for that. I was thinking, and Scarlet by Starlight was another, I was thinking of horror movies. You know, I was thinking of just like, oh, I'm going to make my own horror movies, you know, just, you know, that's not expected of me because that was in Palomar stories, but these are actually a horror story. This is a crime story. You know, I just started doing that. And it's a lot of work. Because I did those stories a few years ago and I added some pages, but man, yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, like I said, I like the whole, I guess maybe you're right, like there's like a horror element, like an ease element of being, you know, like hypnotized and learning stuff in your subconscious that you didn't know about. Is that something that you experienced with, or it just came out of the imagination? Because it seems really thought out, like you maybe were familiar with it. I kind of felt like, I wonder if Gilbert's actually tried hypnotism or anything like that.
No, I know people who have, and I don't know. No, I just did it because it was a cool title, and you know, the hypnotism is something you see on the Alfred Hitchcock TV show or whatever. You know, and so okay, what do they have the most in those old shows? Amnesia or hypnotism? So you know, I haven't done amnesia yet, or have I? Anyway, so yeah, I just liked you know, whoa, it's about a hypnotist. And hypnotists are like a therapist to me. They're pure evil. You know, they're just sucking the money out of you, and you know, but you know, not pure evil, kind of evil.
Kind of. No, well, that's why I always love talking about you and the chances we've had to talk is that you're able to pull not just from comics, but you know, all kind of pop culture. You schooled me on ancient movies, you know, top 40 from 1959 and stuff like that. You're able to pull from a lot of stuff, and that's really cool about you. I know Jaime is kind of anti-academic, but it seems like the whole world was your university where you've been pulling stuff ever since. So maybe just talk a little bit about that, your pop culture influences and what they mean.
They just mean that there's most of it is just stuff I liked or stuff that mystified me when I was young. You know, like I didn't understand certain movies and even TV shows. I didn't get it, but something about me wanted to know. And if I couldn't fill in the blanks with reality, I would just make up stuff. See, that's how I came up with a lot of stories, because I was like, well, this is what this episode of Mannix was about, but I'm going to put my characters in it, and it'll, by the time you're done with it, it's completely different. You know, I'm not just a pop culture junkie, and I was just my brain's able to filter it into comics, but I always felt like I didn't want it to end like Mannix or Ironside or something like that, where it's all wrapped up at the end and then they have the next episode. I wanted the characters' lives to continue. That's why Palomar was a series. I liked, you know, the continuation of the characters, and maybe one episode, it's like a TV show or whatever, or one sequence, and then you go on.
Are you a Miles Davis fan? Is that where you got the Stella by Starlight kind of thing, or?
No, I didn't know that was a Miles Davis number. I just know I stole the name from a movie called what's it called? God damn it! So it's a haunted house movie, The Uninvited, right? And Ray Milland's character is a songwriter, and he writes a song called Stella by Starlight, which was a hit song in the 40s. And I just thought that was, and I like calling my monster cat character Scarlet. So I just Scarlet by Starlight. I just thought it was a cool title. I just like those cool titles, you know. There's no deep meaning in any of it. It's just something that amuses me. But when I put down anything on page, it's got to be worth the reader's time for me, you know.
Yeah, because after it's Scarlet by Starlight, it rolls off the tongue. And I was like, oh, I wonder if he was like listening to the song, because that is a cool, you know, turn of the phrase, Scarlet by Starlight. Like, where do you get that? Where do you get that?
It just comes out of my head.
Well, see, that's another amazing thing, because I know, again, like your brother Jaime, I know sometimes you guys feel a little bit queasy about saying, you know, oh, we're great artists, or oh, you know, we should be in museums and stuff like that, and that's the reason why.
at this point.
You should be, yeah, you should be. I just wanted to know your feelings about it, because Jaime's kind of like anti, but I was just wondering, I mean, at this point in your career, you know, that self-realization that you've created an amazing body of work, and you know, museums are, you know, a natural place for your work. How do you feel about that relationship?
I think it's fine, because once the work is out of our hands, once it's the readers reading it, and if they happen to be academics who like it and go, hey, let's put on a show, let's put on a gallery show, or whatever, you know, that's fine. Go for it, because that just makes me look better, you know, because it's just me and my comics, you know, and then once it's out there, it becomes something else. That was a real pleasant surprise in the early days, is that people liked it outside, you know, of our world, and they liked it a lot, you know, and that was really something I cherish. I think Jaime's a little skittish about academia, because I don't think he wants to get stuck with anything. He doesn't want to be, okay, the academics say, this is what you are, now you got to fill in the blanks. It's like, no. I'm going to do my comics, and if you like it, you like it. You don't. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed. He doesn't want to be cramped. He just loves doing his own thing all the time. Once in a while, I'll think about, well, maybe I should bend over for the man. And then I go, but the thing is, I'm not good. I'm not good at it. I've done stuff I didn't want to do, and it looks like, you know, so, you know, I got to do my own thing.
Yeah, and that's probably the spirit of the brothers right there, is that you guys have been doing your own thing. And I mean, after so many, you know, rivers crossed, so many stuff that you guys have already done, I mean, what is out there as a goal? I mean, I know you guys are pretty, you know, good workers, you know, dependable. What's out there in the near future that you guys still might want to, you know, conquer, or what's on the horizon for you guys?
Arthritis, wheelchairs, blindness, what else? No, we're just going to keep going. I mean, I'm going to try to I'm thinking of doing a collaboration with my daughter, Natalia, as putting a book together, an art book, actually. I mean, I just shouldn't even be talking about this, but now that I talk about it, that means I have to do it. That's why I'm talking about it.
Okay, good.
And I'm backed up with a couple of comics right now, and it's slowing me down, but I want to start getting to it, where we just sort of put our heads together. What kind of really nice art book, you know, just, you know, different kind of, maybe it has stories in it, maybe it just has illustrations or whatever. We're not sure what it's going to be. So
that sounds fun, because I have to admit, as a fan, I do like when you collaborate. I mean, some of the stuff that you've done with Mario have really been amazing. I love your Somewhere in California and stuff that you guys collaborate on back in the day, and it seems like you're pretty good about, you know, working with others and stuff like that, and putting in your little flavor here and there. So that sounds good.
I would do it more if it paid the bucks.
Oh man! Speaking of paying the bucks, have you heard anything from Mario ever since he's left California? We've been missing him.
He's in Oregon now, and he seems to be doing okay. He seems to be all right. He's moved twice in the last couple of years, and it's like, I don't know how.
I feel his pain, and because that's another thing about our 10-year anniversary, is that people may not know that Mario is the official guardian angel of the Latino Comics Expo. 10 years ago, when we first started, he was the first one. We kind of talked to him and said, hey, do you think it's viable? And, you know, he would, you know, chipper us up in our dark days. You know, when we were saying, man, this is going nowhere. He would tell us great stories about, like, when Comic-Con first started. And he's like, you guys don't know, when Comic-Con was first started, it was just in a VFW hall, and nobody was paying attention to us, and our crew was just sitting there all mopey, and you guys are doing good, keep it going, you know, keep it going. So, you know,
that's what it takes. It really, you basically can't quit unless you know, a building falls on you or whatever, you know. But so, and then people say, how did you do it? How'd you do Love and Rockets? We didn't quit. That's all. We just didn't quit. I mean, you have to survive. I understand why people quit. I understand they go to commercial art, or they just quit doing comics, because it's rough for some people. It's in me and Jaime's blood, so we're born with it. So that's why we're able to do it. We're wired for it, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing with us with the expos. That it's hard to believe we've been doing it for 10 years. We really thought, you know, maybe 1 or 2 years just to get the word out there that there's, you know, Latinos doing comics, and, you know, that we're out here. But it seems like every year people keep harassing us, like, when's the next one? You know, when's the next one? And you know, others have popped up around the country as well, doing, you know, Latino art and African American. You know, the LGBTQ has their own show now, and we've kind of been proud that we've been leading this drive so that everybody can have their own voice and everybody can have their own space. So that's kind of been fun because, you know, when we first started, I have to admit, 10 years ago, people would say like, "Oh, why are you trying to separate yourself? You know, why are you guys, you know, not going to San Diego Comic-Con like everybody?" It's like, you know, sometimes it's just fun to be around, you know, your own vibe and your own, you know, your own people for a while.
Agreed.
And see what's up. So 10 years, yeah, you're right. We can't quit now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people, you could have a reason to quit in like in 2 years or something, but right now, just keep going, you know. Okay, right now, you know, just keep going.
And like I said, we've always appreciated, you know, your support. For the people that don't know, you know, we actually we were crazy enough to do an expo in Brownsville, Texas, and you went down there with us as well. We went to Farm Worker Community out in Modesto. You were with us there as well. So we're trying to create a badge of Latino Comics Expo, like the hardcore survivors. You would definitely get one for supporting us. But I just remember in some of those little towns, you know, the look on the little kids' faces when they would actually see you and your work, and you know, that kind of justifies all the trouble for us, is when we see like younger kids, younger generations, seeing you guys, you know, being motivated, wanting to create, and you know, in the end, you know, that's one of our core missions.
And it works. I mean, when young people see that, you know, Latinos are making comics or, you know, organized, doing stuff, something creative, you know, and I hate to say it, something as nutty and rude as my comics, they go, well, you can do anything then, you know. There's no, oh, I have to be a Latino to do this comic. I have to do Aztec comic. I have to do Mayan comic. You can if you want, if that's where your strength is. But if you want to just be do guys hanging out or girls just hanging out or whatever, you know, tell that story, because it's not on TV, you know, it's not on in movies, so why not? It's original.
And that can be just as powerful as just to see yourself in the story, to see yourself in the narrative.
Absolutely.
It can be mind blowing, you know, for a lot of, especially a lot of young people. And you know, that's kind of what happened to me when I first came across your work. So like I said, I'm a Fritz fan. So any other like backstories on Fritz you want to share with me? I'm using this as an opportunity to learn more about my favorite character. What's on the horizon for her? Give me some insight.
Well, her long lost daughters were introduced to her. She didn't know one of them she knew she had. She just basically let the father take care of her, and she found out that she had another girl that she didn't even know she had, because she just bear with me. She gave up her egg, you know, because she didn't want to ruin her Hollywood figure. So she gave up her egg to have kids because the guy she was with wanted kids, and she goes, "Well, I'll compromise. You can have somebody else do it, a surrogate." And so it had twins, but it was a secret. Somehow I just came up with some soap opera reason of there's a secret that one of the twins was, you know, hidden and the other one wasn't, and you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, and then you watch the news and you hear that stuff's happening all the time. It's unique in stories, but in real life it happens all the time. You know, somebody steals a baby and they raise them or whatever. You know, it's horrible. And that's kind of what she's dealing with right now, being a mom, and she likes being a mom, but she doesn't know how. She's a playgirl. Remember in the years ago, she and people were just all over the place, and they were playgirls. You know, they just, because they had so much money and they're young, good-looking women that it was like, well, we can do anything we want, you know, and be with anybody we want. But then that makes you kind of crazy after a while. So they both had to keep their feet on the ground. And so now that Fritz has the two daughters who are closer to her now, she's changed. She's more like, they're important to her, you know, but she can afford it. She's a billionaire, you know. Oh, you want a room or you want 5 rooms, you know, here you go. Anyway, that's it right with her right now. It's going to be going more toward crazy stuff, because I am actually over the years, not right now, right away, but over the years, kind of ending her story in Love and Rockets, you know, in Love and Rockets, you know, her relationships, how things are working, how things are kind of crazy. Just because she's such an interesting character to write, because like I said, I don't know her. I don't know who this person is. So I'm compelled to write her, you know, write stories about her, you know. So anyway, that's that. It's kind of goofy.
Yeah, I always have to fight the urge to want to cast Sofia Vergara as Fritz in a made-for-TV movie, but I don't know.
One thing Sophia does do is yell good. I like when she yells at something or somebody. That's pretty funny. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, she's got the knack for comedy for sure, but yeah, she can definitely yell as well.
Machete! Yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah, and she has that true Latina spirit. Like, you know, she's been around the block. You know, she's paid her dues, and you know, she's got a little mystery to her as well. So I think she'd be perfect as Fritz. So, take my idea and run with it. Go right ahead. So anyway, just to end it on a personal note, I mean, how has everybody been the last 2 years? I mean, the world's been upside down. I mean, it seems like a good thing for artists. You know, it's been a chance for them to, you know, get in the back cave and, you know, and just focus in on work. But I mean, have you noticed any differences in your work or your strategy or anything like that? Huh?
No, because what's
philosophy or maybe.
No, I mean, obviously we've been screwed over by COVID, you know, and that pendejo in the office, you know, for 4 years. But no, I haven't changed. My work hasn't really changed because I wasn't able. Nobody's wearing a mask in my comics because by the time they come out, it's over, or you know, it's different. Everything's changed, you know. So I try not to be too topical when I'm doing a comic because it's like 3 years later. Like right now, I'm doing a story where zombie movies and TV shows are very popular, right? Well, that comic's not going to come out for another 3 months, and that phase is over already. It's already, you know, not the hip thing. You know, Walking Dead, and yeah, you see video games and stuff, but you know, that kind of the zombie craze isn't quite as strong as it was, and that's when I wrote this story. Now it'll come out when it's kind of over. You know? So who knows? I mean, if it is, I don't know.
But you haven't noticed any like personal changes inside? Like, has there been anything like, you know what, I'm going to get this done sooner now, or this is going to be my new focus in, you know what's going on in the world?
There was no, because I work all the time anyway. You know, I'm always working. You know, so that didn't change so much. It's just that this move they made was really, really heavy. A lot of work. You know, my daughter and my wife, and you know, we just like, whoa, we had to move a cartoonist's house to you know, another house. It took a long time, and you know, anyway, it was pretty busy. So I didn't do a lot of work during that time, and I have to admit, getting back into it now, it's a little awkward because I've never been that away from drawing comics for that long. So that's a little different. So I'm getting back into it, and you know, but otherwise, I don't know what any change. I think I'm just a hermit. It didn't change. I was just home more often, you know.
Yeah, well, I can understand the move because I have to admit, when Mario was getting ready to move out of San Francisco, I kind of peeked into his packing, and I was like, oh my God, just the comics,
Yeah,
his old time Mambo and salsa collection.
yeah.
It's like, oh my God, this is like, you know, talk about archives. We haven't even gotten to the clothes yet or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know what's heavier, LP records or DVDs. I don't know, or CDs. I'm sorry. I don't know what boxes are heavier. And you know, you do the trick of 2 books and then close. It doesn't work, man. Still heavier.
That's what we would joke is that Mario had all the mediums. He had like cassettes, reel to reel, albums, CDs.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I would help you, buddy, but my back is going out. So.
Yeah, it's like, oh boy. It was a learning experience. It got us out of there.
That's good. That's good. Well, like I said, I'm part of the LCX and Mola and everybody, you know, we've always appreciated your support. We always spread the word of Love and Rockets, and, you know, especially your work has meant a lot to me. Like I said, I'm a Palomar, Fritz fan, Luba, everybody. It's been really special for us, you know, as a Latino fan base. So at this point, we kind of would like to open it up. We have some questions that are pending to give people a chance, but you know, like I said, on behalf of the 10 years of the Expo, we really thank you, Gilbert. Like I said, one of our mission statements is we're not going to be happy until everybody knows of your work and you know, spends a dollar bill here and there. So gracias.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert, so much for that conversation. First of all, I want to say, but before I actually say that, now's the time for Q&A. If you guys have any questions, please post them in the chat or use the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom window. But I was gonna say, Gilbert and Ricardo, something that stuck out to me is like, as an artist myself, I love comics. I wish I had more time for them, more time to draw, all that stuff. But something that stuck out was that you said that you don't necessarily have to do like super typical Latinx like themes, you know, like sometimes people feel pressure to always represent those themes. But however, I think it's enough to just bring a Latinx like point of view to like daily things that happen all the time, like conversations or things at work, etc. So I think that was pretty cool. So let's see, we have a couple of questions right now. The first one is from Jacobo. Question is, I found a 1980 fanzine with a 4-page Inés story by Gilbert Hernandez. Is this his rookie card? Which was his first published comic strip story?
If it's the story I'm thinking of, that was my first one. It was a 4-page story that I did. You know, I was doing stories to pretend to be in magazines, you know, but there was only fanzines at the time that would print stuff like that. So, you know, we were looking at fanzines, and sometimes they had openings, you know, like, oh, you know, so I had this Inés story that I finished up and put it in there, and I thought that it was all right. You know, I used to draw a lot more detailed, so people were that. But see, in those days, like I said, in late 70s, early 80s, they just didn't have frame of reference. It was like Marvel, DC, and maybe Heavy Metal magazine, and maybe a few other things, but they just didn't have a frame of reference. Like, why would you do this? Why? There's no superheroes. There's no, or at least a sense of, you know, adventure, you know, large explosions and things like that, and costumes and stuff. I know we're just going a different route. I mean, it's not that I don't like that stuff. I'm just going a different route for it. So that's why it was kind of funny at first doing that kind of story. Because the story, if I'm thinking of Inés, is that she's dressed as like a cave woman, right? And she's on this planet and she's just bored. I mean, that was the whole plot, you know, and then the guy comes and stuff. But I'm bringing back the character Inés anyway, actually. You know, she was my first, so I'm going to bring her back. That's all, just because that's probably, I think it was a magazine called No Sex, and it was smaller, like a, you know, folded in half type thing, paper folded in half. Anyway, that's it. Blah, blah.
Thank you, Gilbert. Another question here by Michaela. Do you think there's a chance of the Love and Rockets verse ever ending up as a television show? If so, who would you cast for your favorite characters?
Wow. Well, I was thinking about that, like, oh, they're going to cast this person, that person. That's what the first thing people think of. But I think we would, for the most part, have to go with unknowns, just because just the way the characters are so unique in their way. I would accept an established actor or actress doing the characters, because if they're talented enough, you know, they got the chops, sure. So I don't have anybody in mind other than, you know, there's a little, I will say there's some interest in doing a Palomar work and different things that I'm doing. But the way Hollywood works, man, it's like that started 15 years ago, you know, and they're still talking about it. So we'll see. It looks good. We'll see.
Thank you. Here we have another question. Is there a Jaime/Gilbert collaboration in the works?
Actually, no. We've come to this point of the road where he just does his own, I do mine, and if something surprises us and comes up, maybe, but we don't have any plans. We're just old. He does his stuff, and I do mine. You know, he's already done with the comic book. I'm still finishing it. You know, it's like, I'm like, all right. So I don't know. We'll see. It's never, the door's never shut, but there's no plans right now.
Cool. Another question here is, hi, Gilbert. First of all, I really like your work. I am an aspiring writer/illustrator. What piece of advice would you give to someone starting off?
Well, there's two answers to that. One is financial and one is creative. You know, on the creative side, that's all I can give you. Creative side, be yourself, do it, be honest. You have it come from your soul, have it to be you putting yourself on the paper, not necessarily as a character, but how you feel, your attitude, your perceptions. But as far as financing, I will say that cartooning, making a comic book is tough. it is really tough to make a living. I should say it is tough. It's not, like a lot of those ideas that are in the Marvel movies that make billions of dollars. Those are just guys working at home, just working. Jack Kirby was making, what, $20 a page or whatever it was in those days. And they're making $20 billion movies, and they're all their ideas. If you look at any of those superhero movies, they're all Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's ideas. They're all the good stuff, So, and other guys, of course, but anyway, I don't know. It's difficult to do for a living, so you have to love it. You have to want to do it and love it. So as far as creativity of what you should do, I don't know. You got to be yourself. You got to take your influence, like Jaime and I are a culmination of our influences, and that's what you got to do with yourself. I'm sorry, it doesn't help. Just do it and don't quit.
I think that's sound advice. Just do it and don't quit. Lots of times we don't even start the project and we're already overwhelmed by it. So just do it.
Yeah, it can overwhelm you. So that's why comics still are very personal, very modest. That's what's great about them. When you make a comic book, it's very modest. Yeah, there's all kinds of computer stuff now that goes with it, but if it's just you writing and drawing, it's still a cohesive world. It's not all over the place. Anyway.
Okay, thank you, Gilbert. Here we have a couple more questions.
Nice.
Has technology changed the way you make art/comics over the course of your career? Or are you a classic pen and paper kind of artist?
Well, I'm a classic. I wouldn't know how to translate my stuff into computer stuff. I mean, I like how the computer helps. It gets stuff out. You have scanning, you have, colorists, you have all that stuff now. The technical stuff that's much easier than it used to be. You don't even have to mail your art. You used to have to mail your art and send it, and hopefully it got there, and then they got to send it to the printer and then all the stuff. Now you scan it, and it's great. You get clear scans and you don't have to lose the artwork. It never leaves your house, Some guys, this has been for years, that were known as good illustrators. They went to computer to draw. But the trouble is there's no original art with a computer comic. You don't have these big pages that you see in galleries that like, oh, that looks awesome. Whoa, look at that big, drawing and that big page, big jungle scene or whatever, No, there's none of that. So I don't know. I don't even remember what the question is. I ramble too much.
I think you answered it. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you. So here's another one. This one's a bit different. As a teacher, every year I have students who love to draw or want to be authors. They also happen to be huge Dave Pikey fans. Captain Underpants, the guy that does Captain Underpants. What advice or resources should I provide to them, third grade? Do you ever see yourself targeting a younger audience?
I did a couple of books. Like there was a reprint book of my character Venus. She's like a 11-year-old girl, and she's part of the Palomar world. But when in my experience is you have to go to a certain place to put comics for kids, because they're not going to pick up a black and white comic that's looks like a psycho drew it. I don't know. I don't kids comics. I've done them. I've done them all. I've done all kinds of comics, and I like to have my kids stuff within my regular stuff, really, which is pretty much leans toward adults. And I mean adults as in real adults. Not not naked ladies.
Gotcha. Thank you. Here's the last question. It's kind of worded funny, but it's influenced by Pedro Almodovar and or Alejandro Jodorowsky, I think it's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, I mean, just like any, I would gravitate ever since. Which is great about that 1980s is that was where cable and VCRs came, where you could rent movies. You can actually see the movies you read about, when you're in school or whatever. You could actually see them. So I always gravitated toward the just fantastic. Like Santa Sangre, I say, it's just that's influence, because I thought, no, this is great. This is not a normal movie. This is nuts, but I like, I was just influenced by that stuff but by so much other stuff. I don't have one kind of influence. I am influenced by those. I love those movies, but I can go back to 1940s, 30s, watch a screwball comedy and be influenced by that, and just whatever I'm just a cartoonist sponge, you know. I just like so many different things. We haven't even touched on rock and roll, which I loved, you know, as a kid, you know, and that was part of it. You know, that was another thing people didn't get in the early Living Rockets. They thought, like, especially Jaime stuff with Maggie and Hopi, and then they're hanging out. They go, who are these weirdos and who are these strange girls? Nobody acts like that. That was a lot of bullshit we heard. Nobody acts like that. There's nobody like that. And then, of course, 20 years later, everybody's like that. So, but that's the norm when you're ahead of the curve, you know.
All right, thank you so much, Gilbert. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. That's it for questions. And so the Latino Comics Expo is not over. We have another day. Tomorrow, we're gonna have 3 more programs. We have a Killer Cartoons, Comics, and Creatures, a spotlight on Crystal Gonzalez. She's going to be interviewed by the host of the Comadres y Comics podcast. Then we have La Vida Cómica with Lalo Alcaraz around 3:30. And El Muerto Lives, the life and times of Javier Hernandez, who is one of the founders of the Latino Comics Expo. I'm gonna go ahead and put a link in the chat to send you to those other registration pages so you can check those out. And thanks again to everyone who showed up. And yeah, have a great evening. Thank you again, Gilbert. Thank you, Ricardo. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
All right.
Gracias, Gilbert.
Thank you. Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Until we meet again, hopefully